Okay, welcome to another video. Before we jump straight into it, I just want to say I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas and you was able to spend a good bit of time with your families. Now, what we're going to be doing today is taking a look at the latest available image from RebornOS, which was released on the 27th of December. Now, this marks its second appearance on the channel, but this time we're going to use a different desktop environment, and as this is an Arch-based distribution, we're going to check out XFCE because it's got the newest version of 4.16. For those of you who want to skip the installation part of the video, there'll be a timestamp in the description below that will take you straight to the desktop. With that being said, let's press install it to create a permanent place for RebornOS on our system. So we're going to go ahead and use English as our language. So we've passed all of the system checks, so we can go forward with the next step. So we want English GB for our country, territory or area. Now we want Europe, London, so we're going to point our mouse right where we think it is, and we should get it in one. We have indeed, so we can go to the next step. So English UK is perfect for the keyboard layout. Now, something really cool about RebornOS is instead of having a load of different ISOs available with all the different desktop environments, you have the one ISO, and then you choose from quite a good selection. So we have Budgie, Cinnamon, Deepin, GNOME, i3, KDE, LXQT, Mate, OpenBox, Pantheon, XFCE, and then whatever you choose, it will go through and set it all up for you and have everything working out of the box with a nice Arch-based system. So we're going to go for XFCE. Okay, so out of the box, it's picked up that we have got Bluetooth because we are on the laptop today, so we're going to leave that enabled. And it's also got the Arch user repository support that we're going to leave enabled so we can install packages from the AUR. And we could also choose some additional packages. Now, I can't remember if it does install an Office suite of applications and whether you need to actually add it in here. So what we're going to do is choose LibreOffice. I'm not sure if that's the fresh or the still package, so we'll check that out once we are into the desktop. And I'm also going to grab, let's get VLC as well while we are here. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I'm going to need for now, but we could go into Show Advanced and there'll be a bit more that we can actually check out. So we could add spell check, which is slightly broken at the moment, so I don't think we're going to bother with that. Firmware, wallpaper cycling, SMB, Samba shares, Nautilus. So it adds quite a few additional stuff there, but we're going to leave it with the current selection and go to the next step. So it's giving you a little warning or disclaimer about the AUR, Arch User Repository. Now, I don't really need this because my network speed is okay, but because this installer does download, as it says, a ton of packages, it's recommended to use an additional cache, but we're just going to go forward with that one. So we're going to let Kinchi or Sinchi, someone in the comments can tell me the exact pronunciation of that, sort the mirror list for us. So what we're going to do is erase disk and install RebornOS and let the installer create the partitions for us, and then we can see how the partitions actually been laid out. So we're going to be using the Sabrent NVMe, the return of an old friend. And there we go. And we're going to go next. Okay, user account time. As we're on the laptop, we're going to call this one Lappy. User account and your password. And as per usual, we are going to log in automatically. Now we have our little installation summary here, so we can just double check in case we've made any mistakes. And if we scroll all the way down, we can also check out the partition layout. So it's going to give us 4 partitions: a boot EFI, a boot, a root and a swap. And it's going to be using the ext4 file system. Now, I'm not really going to time this installation because it really does depend on your network speed. It usually takes around about 10 to 15 minutes when I do a RebornOS install from the last time. So we'll see how we go with the XFCE desktop. Okay, so our installation has completed and it did take roughly 10 minutes. But like I said, depending on your setup, your mileage may vary. And it will also vary depending on what you choose to install additionally in the feature selection as well as your desktop. For us, we ended up installing 986 packages. But with that being said, we're now going to reboot and check out our freshly installed XFCE 4.16 desktop on RebornOS. Okay, so here we are, and it's planted us straight at the LightDM login screen. So it doesn't appear that it's really taken any notice of what we set in the installer for auto login. So we might have to sort that out once we are actually at our desktop. But while we're here, they have actually themed LightDM quite nice with the greeter settings. So I'm not sure what theming they're using, but we have the little RebornOS picture as well as the wallpaper. So let's log in and check things out. Okay, and here we are. So first things first, actually, I did a Arch installation of XFCE a few days ago, and I shared an image of that on my YouTube community tab. And to be fair, this looks quite close to a stock installation of what you would get if you was installing it yourself. So first things first, we have a little dialog here that's popped up letting us know that we can add the Flatpak repository, which will be FlatHub. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So it's going to ask you for a password prompt, and then it's probably going to open up GNOME software or something. There we go. Now it's going to grab the metadata for FlatHub, and then once it's done that, we'll be able to search for and install Flatpak applications from within GNOME software. But you can also see we have the PAMAC GUI there as well, so we've got a couple of places that we can manage our packages. So now if we search for Kdenlive, for example, we should be able to go and find that and grab it straight from FlatHub. So as you can see in the sources there, it's getting it from dl.flathub.org. Okay, so we can now remove that from our startup. It's going to ask you for your password once more, and now that will no longer appear every time you start up your system. Okay, so to start things off, we'll do a little desktop overview because this does appear to be very close to what I was using on Arch the other day. So here we can see the nice new XFCE icons for 4.16. And if we go into our panel preferences, you'll notice a few changes in here as well, and it's just tidied things up a bit as well. So if we go into appearance, we can change the dark mode of the paneling system. So if we do that, it will then go to the light theme for Adwater, and then that will go straight back to the dark theme, but that won't have any effect on your actual application. So if we open up files or Funar, and now we do that again, you'll notice that only the paneling is going to change. Now something I did notice when I was using this as just Arch the other day, if we go into this settings manager and go straight into appearance, it matters what theming you're on. So if you're on Adwater Dark, you'll lose the option to then switch in between the different colors for the panel. So if you leave it on Adwater, it will work, but on anything else, it won't take any effect. But now that we've shown that, we are going to leave it on the Adwater Dark theme because I'm a dark theme kind of guy. We'll check out some of the other themes in just a moment once we've done with the desktop. So in items, you'll also notice they have cleared this up a little bit and made it look a little less cluttered. So if you notice these buttons, I do believe they used to be on the right here, but they're now on the bottom. So while we're here, we are going to remove the applications menu, which is the old school little drop down like this, and replace it with Whisker, and that will make looking at the applications together a little bit easier. So we're going to go ahead and remove the applications menu, and then we're going to add the Whisker menu. There we go. And we are just going to need to bring it to the top of the list, so it's right next to our Windows buttons, which I'm probably also going to remove in just a moment as well. Okay, that's all good. So while we've got Funar open, another new feature of XFCE 4.16 is that file transfers can now be sort of paused, and then you can continue the transfer or resume it. So if we go to copy this Ubuntu ISO straight into our downloads folder, we're going to go to paste, and you'll notice we can now just pause it and then resume it, and then it'll copy it over and all of that good stuff. Now what we're going to do is jump into the settings manager, which has had a nice new little sort of look and feel to it. And as you can see there again, we can see all of the nice new XFCE icons, as well as the CSD or client-side decoration, which has got some people torn. I've read some people like it and some people really don't like it, but there is a package that you can install that kind of removes it, but I'm not sure off the top of my head which package that actually is. So while we're in here, we can check out some of the settings that we can do. So we've got Light DM Greeter here. So we're going to open this and see exactly what theming they have used on the login screen, because they have made it look quite nice. So for themes, it's using the flat blue, and for icons, it's using the flat remix green, and then it's using the standard RebornOS image for your wallpaper, and then your user image is of course the RebornOS logo. If you wanted to change any of that, you can just go straight into here, and you can get some quite nice looking Light DM login screens, to be fair. Let's go back to our settings. Now in default applications for our web browser, we of course have Firefox. For Mail Reader, we have no Mail Reader application installed, so if you was going to use this as a daily driver and you quite like a desktop email client, during the installation you might want to go ahead and see if there's an email client that you can add before you are fully installed. For utilities, our file manager is of course Funar, and our terminal is the XFCE terminal. Now I just want to see what additional themes that we've got before we start making any other changes to our system. So of course we have the Adwaters, which are going to be the default for the XFCE desktop environment, and then we have my favourite themes of all, which are the Arc variations. Very nice, and it's got all of them. So it's got lighter, darker, dark and arc, and then we have the flat plat, blues, compacts, as well as the dark and lights. So we're going to leave it on the Adwater dark. Now in icons, of course, it has Eduardo, which will have a lot of those new XFCE icons as well. And then we have different variations of the flat remix. We have the blue as well as the dark and lights, reds, yellows, and all of that good stuff, as well as papyrus. So I'll probably leave it on there for now, but I might at some point also install the arc icons, because that's kind of the icons that I always like to go for. But I do like the fact that it does have the arc theme installed out of the box. Saves me a bit of time when I kind of set this up for my own daily use in just a moment. So now that we've looked at some of those new features of XFCE 4.16, let's see which actual applications are installed out of the box on RebornOS. So starting with accessories, we of course have GNOME disks, and while we're here, let's see how large our swap partition is. So it's made us a swap partition of 8.3 GB. It won't work with hibernation or anything like that, and our RAM on this laptop is 16 GB. Let's keep going. So of course we have LightDM Greeter, which we've just seen, and then we have this cool little package here called RebornOS Fire. When I first used this, I thought this was like a firewall, but it's an acronym for Features and Improvements in RebornOS Made Easy. So what you can do here is change around your display manager from LightDM or SDDM, which you'd find on KDE. But you can also do this, so as well as having it in the installer, if we got a bit bored or we wanted an additional desktop to try out, we have all of these options here as well from within this one application, and we just have to hit install and it will go ahead and set up that desktop for you as well, which I think is very cool. Now in system tasks, we can do some system maintenance and repair. We could also reinstall our Grub bootloader, downgrade and remove packages, leaving dependencies behind. So in programs here, we have Control Mycroft. We can install Ambox. So Ambox is like a little Android emulator which will allow you to use Android applications on your Linux desktop, and you could even, if you wanted to, install like the Play Store services, and then you can download all of the applications from there if you prefer. We then have Tools, which has got the Pacman settings, the Arch Kernel Manager. So I do believe we just went for the standard kernel. So we are using the standard Linux kernel from the looks of things, but we could also get the LTS, the Zen or the hardened, all from within this application, making things quite easy and user friendly. We then have Stacer, which is like a system monitor kind of tool, if I do remember. We then have PAMAC software and PAMAC settings. And then in here we can go into it and it's pace, and then you can change the repositories, the options, and sort your mirror lists and all of that good stuff. So with that out of the way, we have one more thing, so we can also roll back your system to a previous state, all from within this application. Again, very handy stuff. So I think that's everything I really want to check out in accessories. So in development, we just have CMake and Icon Browser. In education, we have LibreOffice Math, because of course we did choose to install LibreOffice in the installation. Now in graphics, we just have Ristretto, Document Viewer, and LibreOffice Draw. So I'm going to want to go ahead and install GIMP. And in internet, we of course have Firefox as our default browser. We then have the SSH and VNC server browsers. Okay, that's quite a bit of multimedia. I didn't expect that. So we have Echo Mixer, NV24 Control, HDA Jack Restack, HDSP Conf, HDSP Mixer, HW Mix Volume. So Parole Media Player, it does come with a media player out of the box, but we also chose to install VLC. We then have Pulse Audio Volume Control, and then VLC plus the V4L2 Capture and Test Utilities. While we're here, let's check out if our sound's actually working. It's not. So this happens quite a lot on this laptop, so it will give you the dummy output. So if we go onto Funart and go into my external drive here, I do have the exact command that we need to copy over, and then that will enable the sound to actually work. And while we're here, we can also see which version of LibreOffice we have got. So it appears to be a nice new version of 7.04.2, so that leads me to believe that it's installed the fresh LibreOffice package. Okay, let's open up a terminal, and what we're going to need to do is go into sudo and then just copy and paste that command over, and now that should, once we do a reboot, work with all of the sounds and stuff. So what we're going to do before we do that reboot is also go ahead and install htop, and then we can see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot. So when I done the vanilla Arch install of XFCE the other day, I was using about 420 MB, so I'll be interested to see how much this does differ. Now we're also going to go through the rest of the applications, and then we'll do our reboot. So of course we have the full LibreOffice suite, which we chose in the installation, dictionary and document viewer, and then other we have HP UI scan. Now in settings is going to be where all of your XFCE settings are, and then just other sort of specific settings. So here we have the firewall configuration. Very simple stuff. For anyone that's used Linux before, you'll be very familiar with the little dialog that pops up here with your incoming, outgoing, status, rules, report, log, and all of that good stuff. Now I don't think there's much else I want to check out in settings at the moment. So in a moment we will just do a fresh reboot and we can see how much RAM we are using. But while we are here, let's also check out our session and startup and see what we've got automatically starting. So we've got quite a bit here. We've got XFCE settings, the settings notification daemon, screensavers. I can't see anything for Bluetooth actually, so I'm wondering if it has actually installed any Bluetooth packages at all. I'm pretty sure we chose it in the installation process. Let's have a look. Okay, it has installed the Bluetooth stuff, so we've got the BlueZ there as well. Okay, that's all good. Right, so what we are going to do then is quickly do a screen tearing test before I do a reboot, because I don't think we do have any tearing, so that does save me making an exorg file, but we're going to double check now before I go ahead and do a reboot. So we're just going to go straight to YouTube and go on to a screen tearing test. I can usually tell just from doing a little window wobble there of whether it's going to give us any tearing, so let's have a look. So we're just going to type in screen tearing test, and then we'll see if we get any breaks in these lines, and if we do, it means we need to sort of edit our exorg file to get rid of any breaks in them lines. Oh, we don't want picture in picture, so let's just full screen that for now. So I can see that I've got a bit of tearing there, so I am going to have to also fix the screen tearing. So what we're going to do is reboot, check out the sounds working, and then probably also fix that screen tearing. Okay, we are back, so the screen tearing has now been taken care of, and let's just test out that our sound is now also working and is not giving us the dummy output. So we'll use the keyboard shortcuts, so it appears that it is working. So we're going to open up the audio mixer, and hopefully it no longer says dummy output, which it doesn't. Perfect. And while we're also testing out keyboard shortcuts, let's make sure that the display brightness is working as we are on the laptop. Perfect, so all of the key bindings are working as they should out of the box. Very nice. Now what we're going to do then is go ahead and install some additional packages using the PAMAC. In fact, we'll do it in GNOME software because we are going to go ahead now and grab Kden Live, and we'll also grab Planck and Albert, which is an application launcher I always like to use on XFCE. So I'm going to need Kden Live to edit this very video. And then we're also going to need to get things like Planck and Albert, but we're not going to add them on the auto start until we've done our RAM reading, because we don't want to change too much before we see how much RAM this thing actually uses. So while that's doing that, we are also going to open up a terminal, and we're going to type in sudo pacman-esh, and we're going to install Planck, and we're also going to go ahead and get Albert. And that should actually work while we're doing a Flatpak installation, as it's not using the same. Perfect. So I'm going to pause the video here, and then we're going to come back, check out the RAM, and then we'll start setting up this desktop for how I like to use XFCE. Okay, and here we are. So when I was on just vanilla Arch with the XFCE 4.16 desktop, I was getting around 450 to 460 MB on a fresh boot, and that is with also installing a few additional packages. So all we've done on here is also installed a few additional packages, and we're using around 480 MB. So this is quite close to what you would get from an actual stock Arch experience. And actually, if you're a bit put off by doing the whole Arch installation, I think RebornOS is actually quite a good one to get you quite close to what you would get from doing it yourself without having to go through the hassle. And also another good one for that is EndeavourOS, as long as you choose not to install it with their sort of EndeavourOS theming. But no, very impressed with that. Cool. Right, now let's start actually setting up this desktop to how we like to use things. Let's see if we've actually got the AUR enabled, as we should when we've done the installation. So if we type in our password, we should notice that it has got that little check there, so we do know that AUR is enabled, and we could also enable Flatpak support in the PAMAC as well, but I'm just going to leave it in GNOME software. Right, so now that we have installed Albert and Planck, let's go ahead and open them up and set them up for how we like to use things. So we're just going to type in Planck, but of course I need to get rid of that panel at the bottom as well. So if you go into panel preferences and just remove the second panel like so, and now that's gone. While I've got a program open, and before I move the Windows buttons, another new feature now, if you do a little right click, you'll notice that we can do a launch new instance of that window. So if we open up a couple of terminals and then we go to open a new instance, you'll then get a nice little number there letting you know how many windows are open of that current application. So very handy. Okay, so now that we've removed that, we can now start making our dock look a bit nicer. Now you will notice we've got a bit of a gnarly line going all the way across there, but at least it's letting us know that Windows Compositing is working. So we're going to go to Windows Manager Tweaks, straight to Compositor and remove shadows under dock, and now that'll get rid of that nasty little line. Now for some reason, I don't know why, but Plank often will just install a load of duplicate icons for the application, so you might want to remove ones that you don't need a duplicate of. Now we're going to go into Preferences and change the theming, but what we need to do is go into my Downloads folder and get my two favourites of Shade and Anti-Shade, depending on what colour theming I'm on, where I'm on a light or dark theme. So we're going to show our hidden files, go to .local, share, Plank, and we're going to copy them bad boys straight over into our themes folder. And now if we go into preferences, we can change to shade, which will look very nice with a dark theme like we are currently on. Now we can go into anti-shade, and if we change our theme to Adwater to light, we can see how that looks with the light shaded color as well. So we're going to go to appearance, and then we're just going to go to Adwater, and now we can also go into the panel and change the actual color of the panels now from the dark back to the light in the appearance. And yeah, that all looks quite nice together actually. I'm pretty happy with that, but what I'm going to do is leave it on the dark mode, because like I said, we are dark mode kind of guys. And now we're just going to change that back to shade. Now I will change my icons in just a moment, but for that I'm going to need to download the Arc icons, and I'm also going to change my theme to the Arc Dark theme. But for now we're pretty cool with how that's all looking at the moment. So next up we're going to get our Albert application, which is what we're going to use to launch most of our applications, because we don't have the left super key bound to the whisker menu, and I'm not going to bother binding it. Instead I'm going to use the super and directional keys for Windows snapping side by side, because at the moment to get a snap we'll have to drag and drop it to those sides of the screens, or of course we can keep dragging it to traverse all of our workspaces or virtual desktops, but we have no super left or right to do that for us, so we'll do that in just a moment too. So what we're going to do is open this bad boy up. Now my hotkey that I like to use is Alt and Space, but there is one problem about that. We need to go into the Windows Manager, and we now need to change the operations menu to Control Space. I don't tend to use that shortcut a lot anyway, and now Alt Space will work with Albert. So we want Arc Dark Grey because we're going to go for the whole Arc Dark theming. I don't want a tray icon. We are going to add it to the auto start, but we're going to do that manually with the session and startup. Now I want to clear on hide, hide on close, and now in extensions all I really need it to do for the moment is search for applications and also files. So we're going to do that, and now we're going to go into our session and startup and add both of them now to our application auto start. So we're going to go Plank, and then we're going to do the same for Albert. Now this will add a little bit additional onto our RAM, but we'll check that out in just a moment as well. Okay, perfect. Now what I'm going to do is remove the Windows buttons here, because as we have got a dock at the bottom, I don't really need two places to minimize and maximize applications from. So we're going to go back into our panel preferences and remove the Windows buttons. Okay, right, what I'm going to do is pause the video here, download a few additional packages and set my desktop up a bit more, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, and here we are. So we've made a few changes to our desktop now and also changed the wallpaper. So I've got it looking pretty much like how I like any other desktop to use. The only thing that we're lacking at the moment is a global menu, but I might look at how we can get a global menu working on this Arch-based XFCE desktop. But as you can see now, we've added a few additional packages to what we started with, which was 986. We now have 995 plus 7 Flatpak applications. And I've also done the keyboard shortcut, so now I can tile windows left and right using super and the directional keys. And we should also be able to move that to a different desktop now. So if you open that up, as you can see, if you watch this part here, we are now moving that across to the different desktops as well. So that's pretty much my quick look at RebornOS, and in particular the XFCE desktop, which is now on version 4.16. If you'd like to actually check out XFCE 4.16 yourself, I would probably actually recommend that you do use something like RebornOS or EndeavourOS if you don't really want to do the whole Arch installation. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.